Okay.
Hello, welcome back. Happy New Year, everyone. Welcome to What's on Your Mind podcast, season 2, episode 1. Uh,
Yeah.
and today we're talking about affairs.
What a
Um,
wonderful way to kick the year off.
right, I know. Yeah. Why do they happen? Common questions that come up that we see as couples therapists, and um, kind of the what is it what is an affair? What does that mean? What's the
Sure.
difference between an emotional affair and a physical affair? I think it's pretty self-explanatory, but
They're
some
complicated,
it's
right?
complicated, right? Um,
Absolutely.
so yeah,
I don't know about you, but have you been seeing an increase of affairs lately?
yeah, I think so. I feel like it's more so like emotional affairs recently,
Mm.
but yeah, what about you?
You know what? I do think there's some seasonality to
Yeah.
affairs, which is weird to say. Like, I don't have any empirical evidence to back this up, but it's really just my experience. I think a
Sure.
lot of folks really try and stick it through for Christmas, especially if they have children. Like,
Mm,
okay, let's get through the holidays, right? And then, like, a part of January is a wash. Like, everyone's just, you got New Year's and people aren't like back to work yet, or kids aren't back to school yet.
yeah.
And then like real life kind of sets in again, right? Like nearing ish the mid to end of January. Now we're in February, and I think people are saying, okay, we got to do something about this now, right? Like we got to maybe get help, or we got to start thinking about how we're going to co-parent, or we can't just ignore this anymore. And maybe that's when we're starting to see people, right? Like we're not
Yeah.
necessarily seeing people right when the affair happens. We're seeing people during the aftermath of that affair.
Yeah.
Then they're realizing, okay, either we want to see if we can work on this, or we want to end amicably, or we want to co-parent, whatever that may be.
Yeah.
But yeah, I do. I think I see more affairs during this time of the year.
Yeah, no, I mean that makes a lot of sense. I mean, people are, like you said, trying to make the holidays nice for their kiddos, and then reality sets back in. The kids go to school and they're left with a lot of hurt feelings and miscommunication.
Well, and the whole like new year, new me, like
Hmm.
resolutions and gotta make this year better and different. And I
Yeah.
think there's that little bit of like a push to get people going.
Hmm.
And yeah, maybe that's where we see them.
Yeah. So what would you say is the most common question you get when you're
Oh my
talking to a couple?
goodness. Well, a lot of people want to know what is normal. Like they want
Mhm.
to know, is this normal to feel this way?
Yeah.
Should I be staying? Should I be going? Will this happen again? How do I know this won't happen again? And we
Yeah.
can explore all these in a little bit more detail if we want. But yeah, I think a lot of people just want to know um, that their feelings are valid and that they're allowed to be hurt and like what's okay and what's not okay because life keeps going, right?
Yeah.
Yes, this thing happened in their relationship, but what do we do, right?
Right.
Do we pretend like everything's normal? I mean, I can't because this thing happened to me and it's
Yeah.
huge, but like what do I say? What questions are okay to ask? What like how much information is enough information, right? It's challenging. I think
Yeah.
people just want a roadmap, and of course, us
Hmm.
being Gottman trained therapists, we love ourselves a good roadmap.
True,
So
true.
I find that that is really, really helpful. That's something that I help my couple clients who are experiencing an affair or a betrayal work through.
Yeah. I would say I also try to, I guess, put it into perspective of, especially depending on how far from the affair it has been.
Hmm.
It's like a lot of times it seems like, and maybe I'm just projecting here, but it seems like, or assuming rather, that they think they should be healed or further along instead of realizing, look, it's been 3 months. It's not really that long. Or it's been five
Yes.
months. It's really not that long since you've experienced this. This is a
Yes.
traumatic experience.
You
You're
named it.
not, you're not, you wouldn't expect someone who, experienced a natural disaster and survived that to be over it in a couple months, right? So why
Even
would
like
you
a broken
expect?
arm or leg, like we don't
Yeah,
expect people to be walking or running a marathon or
right.
lifting weights after that. Like,
Yeah,
come on, cut
exactly.
yourself some slack.
Yeah. So yeah, I would say trying to, especially the person who was cheated on, I see that they need help kind of putting it back into perspective for themselves of like, okay, it's really not been this long. I'm allowed to feel these intense emotions still. It's okay.
A lot
Um,
of good days, a lot of bad
mhm,
days. Like some days are
yeah,
gonna feel like hell, and some days are gonna feel actually kind of normal. And that's
right.
like this roller coaster, right? That people
Hmm.
experience. And it's so normal. I
Right.
try to really get that through to my clients.
Yeah.
But it's hard, right? It's
Yeah.
unpredictable, it's unsettling. You never know what kind of day you're gonna have or what's gonna trigger you, right?
Yeah,
Like
that's a big one.
you named it as a trauma, and that's exactly what it is. It's a trauma.
Hmm.
And there's things that are gonna evoke big emotions in us.
Yeah.
May not know where they are.
Well, and I think when you have one partner that's been cheated on and then the partner that was the cheater, um, when they're both like when the cheater is like remorseful, right?
Mm,
Um, I think what I've seen can happen is you'll have uh a person who basically they want like a they have so many needs from this partner that they're not
right?
getting anymore and they don't know how to express that and there can be a lot of defensiveness sometimes
Right.
and uh, that part is difficult to kind of help them wade through a lot of the times. I I would say also the how long should my partner be allowed to look at my phone
Mm,
or other things that I was using during my affair or during my what you had called it something else
betrayal.
besides betrayal. Thank you.
Yeah.
Um, that I know that's a big question that gets asked when I'm first working with clients is, well, how long am I allowed to look at this? Or how long should she or he be allowed to look at this stuff? And
Yeah.
it's like, well, I I personally
What
say,
is your opinion on that?
yeah, no, that's fair. I usually say 5 months.
Mm,
I I don't know if that's too short or not, but I say readdress it in 5 months. I would say
yeah.
don't, but I would also put a caveat on it that when you're looking at their phone, I would also try to steer away from being volatile when you're doing that. Like
Mm.
you can say, I'm
Like
angry
don't
about
do
this,
it
or
in
this is
secret.
right. Yeah, yeah. Like I'm hurt by the fact that you did this or you did it this way or that you said that to
Yeah.
them. But I also know that sometimes when with anger, you can also get a lot of hateful language that isn't helpful when you're trying to rebuild that trust. So,
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, there's so many different things we could talk about there within what you said. The hateful language, things like that. The fact that the person has been cheated on, or let's say betrayed, the Gottmans use that language a lot,
mhm,
betrayer, betrayed. So that the betrayed partner feels so much hurt, so much sadness, so much anger, right?
mhm,
It still doesn't give them the right to attack the other
right.
person. They can share how they feel, of course, and that's really encouraged,
Mhm,
but you cannot then belittle or attack the betrayer.
right.
That is not going to serve in the interest of healing, moving you guys forward.
Right. Yeah.
So you got to be mindful of that. That's a tricky one, again, because big emotions, they sneak up on us, and we're not perfect. We got
Right.
to really keep that in mind. Yeah.
Yeah. No, I agree with that. I think that's yeah.
If you want my, oh, not, maybe you or
Yeah,
whoever's listening wants
no.
my opinion on how long, I really don't give a like concrete
Mm,
time. What I do say is that typically when you can look at your partner's phone, it no longer becomes forbidden fruit.
yeah.
You're
Mhm,
like, oh, I can look anytime. Oh, well, I guess I don't really feel the need to look anymore
mhm.
because it's there. and I could do it anytime. And so in the beginning, there's more of that looking, and it really is just to calm any anxieties that are happening.
Yeah.
But over time, especially if you don't find anything, now that's a big part of it.
Yeah.
You
True.
don't want to look anymore because you're like, I don't really feel like I have to. Every time I've looked, I haven't really gotten anything. And it's
Yeah.
kind of icky. A lot of my couples tell me, like, I don't want to be looking. And
Right.
I don't really want, like, I could see how they feel too on the other end, like zero privacy type thing. And that's something a lot of my clients will say too, is
Yeah.
like, well, I I don't want them reading like the stuff I send my mom or like I send my best friend. And it's like, it's not about them, but I still want some kind of like, freedom to express myself without
Right.
like being watched. And certainly I understand that. And that again can be something that's discussed within the couple.
Right.
But complete transparency in the beginning is really the way to go, to rebuild that
Yeah.
trust. But, so yeah, I don't give a timeline typically, though. It's more so in the beginning, and it trickles out, especially if you're not hiding anything.
Right. Well, yeah, and that's the, like you said, the biggest thing there too.
That's right. Yeah. So a lot of time, like, and again, I don't know about you, Cassandra, but with our, this day and age, if I can say that, I sound an old person, but a lot of affairs are happening digitally. Like they're
Hmm.
texting, they're calling, they're FaceTiming, they're Snapchatting, or whatever
Yeah.
people are using.
Or
Um,
I've also seen using like the Notes app as
Notes
well.
app.
Yeah, because you can share a note
Oh,
and then they're using it that way.
yeah.
So it
So a
just,
lot of it
yeah.
is digital or virtual.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, a lot of times the questions are around phone usage.
Yeah. Or even if there's someone like you work with them, or if it had happened because you were on the same sports team or
Mm,
something like that. Um, I know that that can also be a conversation of, well, what does that look like? Because, if you work in the same office and
what do
it's
you
not
do?
feasible to switch jobs or switch departments,
That's right.
what does that look like?
Exactly. Which I think is a great segue into boundaries.
Hmm.
We couples need to know what is appropriate and what's not appropriate. Um,
Yeah.
a lot of times I think people think boundaries are like there's like a negative connotation with boundaries,
Yeah.
right? Like, oh, they're limiting, they're like rules.
Hmm.
And I guess they're kind of rules, but the way I like to see it, I'm sure this comes from the Gottmans, is like we're trying to keep all the bad stuff out. We're trying to
Right.
like protect the relationship. So I say if the relationship is this like house, well then we want to protect the house from all like the storms and things.
Hmm.
So the boundaries serve as like a force field around that house. Nothing can penetrate the house while the house is like being built. It's
Yeah.
fragile right now, right?
Right.
So instead of it looking like we're keeping you in, it's about keeping the bad stuff out.
Right.
I think that's just a really good way of looking at it. And so someone
I like
works with
that.
the person who the betrayal happened with.
Hmm.
Well, okay, so there's no personal talk. It's only professional talk. There's no more like
Yeah.
talking on your personal phones. Like you're to not have lunch with this person,
Yeah.
that type of thing. And I should say, just because I know how it's sounding as I say it out loud, boundaries are meant to be co-created, right? Like they're
Right.
meant to
Yeah.
be decided
Hmm.
together. Not one person can superimpose the boundary upon the
Yeah.
other. So, for example, like the betrayed partner, they're feeling really hurt. They probably have a lot of anxiety. They have a lot of things that could help them. And maybe the one, like I said, don't have lunch with this person at
Yeah.
work. Okay, so does the other person agree? Like, is that a reasonable
Right.
boundary? Is that something that the betrayer, the other person, is that something they think they can uphold?
Hmm.
Right? That's so,
Yeah.
so important.
Yeah. And I think kind of going off what a boundary, why some people are kind of against, not against a boundary, but when they hear that, they think it's very restrictive. I think it's
Yes.
because they think normally when we talk about boundaries, we talk about boundaries in the sense of there being a consequence to it. Right. Like if
Right.
you don't, if your mom is yelling at you and berating you on the phone and you say, Mom, if you don't talk, or if I need you to stop talking to me like that, or I'm going to hang up the phone, right? Like that's a boundary. Um, I think of the boundaries that we're talking about as more of a expectation, right? Or like this is what we need in order to make sure that our
Yeah.
relationship is healthy. And so it helps, I think, to kind of separate that a touch. At least that's what I've kind of found.
Yes.
And yeah, I think especially when we're talking about coworkers or the work wife that I heard it
Right. We
termed,
were talking about this earlier.
yeah,
Yes.
that we heard it termed, or even just I know that I've read a lot of, stories about women who their partner has an extremely close relationship with a female friend, and that female friend is crossing boundaries. And,
Mm,
how do you talk to your partner about that? And, when does that become, okay, they're just a friend to now there's like a weird competition going on.
mm,
And, you know, I term that as like the starting of an affair, maybe more of the emotional side of it,
mm.
because there's not many boundaries, and how do you kind of fix that?
And I think it's really unfortunate that a lot of people don't address this soon enough, right?
Yeah.
Like a lot of
Hmm.
people hold back from saying
Right.
something. And like I tell everyone who's listening, don't like speak up, say
Mhm.
how you think and feel with your partner, let them know,
Right.
and let's deal with this before it becomes something, potentially,
Yeah.
right? Of course,
Right.
not
Exactly.
always the case, but even if it makes
Hmm.
you feel uncomfortable, that is reason enough to talk about it. It doesn't have to be an affair and a betrayal in order to like set boundaries or get on the same page with expectations. Heck no.
Hmm.
Let's do this now.
Yeah. And I think that's also just kind of setting the tone of your relationship too, when you're able to do that really soon and say, hey, this interaction you have with this other person makes me feel uncomfortable. Can we talk about this?
Yes,
And it can be as simple as that. Like it doesn't have to
right?
be this like it doesn't have to be this dramatic thing. It just and sometimes I've come across people who some people are very oblivious to things and don't even realize that, oh, this is inappropriate now that I'm in a relationship, or this was inappropriate before and I just didn't think about it.
Uh-huh.
Um,
Totally.
and so it might just be a simple miscommunication thing. Um, that they don't even realize. But if it continues on, it can kind of spiral into other things.
Yeah. I think I used to be surprised at how many people didn't have explicit conversations, but
Hmm.
oh my goodness, so many people don't have explicit conversations. And even as I
Yes.
say it out loud, I guess like, even myself and my partner
Yeah.
probably haven't had as many explicit conversations as we could have
Right.
had, right?
Yeah.
But just getting on the same page, so important.
Yeah, definitely. And, I say as a couple, like talk about different things like that, like, okay, if you were in this situation, what would you do? Like, what would you feel comfortable with? How would that make you feel uncomfortable? Like those sorts of
Yeah.
things, just so you know.
Explore with each
Hmm.
other, right? Like
Yeah.
your limits and what have you. And you may actually be surprised in what you hear,
Yeah. Yeah.
what is okay or what isn't okay from
Right.
your partner. I think it's a way of, I mean, Gottman's would say love maps, of course, right? Like understanding your partner a little bit
Yeah.
better. But I would say just like building deeper connection with your
Yeah.
partner. Everything's on the table. We know each other through and through.
Yeah.
There's nothing left to guess.
Yeah. I know my partner and I will usually like read Reddit posts about relationships and sort of
Mm,
talk about, oh, what would we do in this situation? Or how would we
interesting.
want to like do differently? Or, oh, I can't believe they would do that or say that kind of thing. And it
Right.
it helps to sort of see, oh yeah, well, I guess we are on the same page in this area, or oh, maybe we aren't as on the same page of this, or and then that's a conversation to have.
Exactly. Yeah. A lot of people like outside of affairs don't know necessarily where to begin. They're like, oh, like
Yeah.
what I don't know what I don't know, so what do I ask? And so I love that idea of
Mm.
like a prompt, right? Like a Reddit
Yeah.
post or something that's going on in the world or maybe
Mhm.
something you heard or what have you. And yeah, just go from there and get curious with each other.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, oh, that's good. Do you want to go back to the work flirt thing, the work wife, work husband thing? Because I think that's an
Sure.
interesting concept that
Yeah.
I would love to talk about that more.
Okay, yeah. Um, so usually from what I've experienced with couples is it tends to be something that starts pretty innocently enough, like most
Yeah,
kind of things, and evolves. And I think it goes to kind of what the Gottman, well, very much what the Gottmans talk about, which is that idea that you're turning away from your partner and getting those emotional needs met
exactly.
instead of turning back towards your partner and talking about it.
Yeah.
So it it becomes this, well, I talk to this person at work or on my phone or whatever through email about things that are bothering me. And it might have started as simple as, oh, I'm stressed because things are stressful at home, right? It may have just been like a just so you know sort of conversation that
Right.
evolves into this very complicated web.
Mm-hmm.
And then kind of will actually bring up the mate poaching that we
Yes,
talked about
yes. I want to know more
earlier.
about this. Tell me more.
Okay, well, mate poaching is, and it might have a different name now. Just to preface everyone that's listening, this is a research project that I did in undergrad, so like 2013. So a minute, okay? Uh, but anyway, basically, mate poaching is when you have a couple and there's this person that is coming in purposefully to poach the mate or one of the mates. And they come in and they do things that kind of slowly move the person away from their partner. And
Mm.
they might do things like get this person to start complaining about their partner, get this person to start
Oh,
talking about the troubles they're having. Um, it might be like, oh man, he shouldn't treat you that way, or she shouldn't treat you that way, right? Like it's almost like a build this little system of, oh, it's us against the world, right?
yeah.
Like I get you.
They're
He
building
doesn't.
safety.
Yeah, yeah, exactly, right? Like I get you. He doesn't get you, or
A
she
lot of
doesn't get you.
empathizing,
Yeah, yeah,
validating,
yep.
all of that.
And what makes it different than just like a work wife or work husband is that this person knows what they're doing.
It's
They're,
intentional.
yeah,
Yeah.
they're purposefully going out looking for somebody who's already attached, looking for a weak point and going in for that weak point.
Right.
Um,
Sounds very primal.
right. Well, yeah, exactly. I know, hence mate poaching. Uh, I know it sounded like I was doing a cool research project with
That's what I was
monkeys,
like,
but
and I see the lion going in.
yeah, really. Right? No, no, no. So yeah, it's quite common. I'm trying to remember like the literature that I've read, which again, a while ago.
It's so interesting
Uh,
though.
yeah, and so they come in and usually they've found that, or from what I remember, so if it's been updated, please correct me. Uh,
Right.
from what I remember, they found that men tended to go in kind of to mate poach for physical reasons,
Okay.
and women tended to go in for more emotional reasons.
Interesting. Well, not surprising,
No.
but still interesting.
Right. Yeah, yeah. And that again may have changed, just with how we view sex and all that stuff.
Hmm.
So,
Hmm.
but yeah, that was something that I always found interesting. uh,
Yeah.
I don't know that I've actually met someone that was mate poached by any means, but
I just don't think it's like I envision it not being as intentional. Like I'm gonna go after that person and I'm gonna like, you know, get at their weak points and what have you. But I mean, I suppose like let's say someone had a crush or something on
yeah.
someone else. Like let's even just go back to the work example, right?
Hmm.
Like, okay, so I know things about this person's marriage or
Yeah.
relationship, and I really am interested in them. And so I want them to fall in love with me. I
Right.
want them to like leave their partner for me. So, how do I do that? Well, I could. Yes, like you said, form that like really tight emotional safe place. I'm
Mhm.
going to validate, I'm going to be on their side, I'm going to show them that like I get it, which is amazing. Like typically that is what we would do in a relationship, right?
Right, exactly.
Um,
Which is
but
really
like you
creepy.
said, turn like get them to turn towards you instead of
Yeah.
turning towards their partner. And from the other person's end, the person who's in the
Yeah.
relationship, I mean, it very well could seem innocent, right? This coworker of mine is like a safe place.
Yeah.
I can confide in them. Like
Mhm.
this is good, and yeah, that's where affairs start for
Yeah.
sure. Um, Sometimes it's less intentional. Like I don't really think the poaching thing happens all the time.
No.
Just like two people who find themselves interested in each other and confiding in each other and or getting those needs met outside the relationship, right?
Yeah. Hmm.
Yeah, that happens a lot.
One kind of off the rails question that
Ooh.
I was kind of thinking about the people that are in a monogamous relationship and then they want to go cheat, but then they come to their partner and say, let's open our relationship,
Oh, okay.
and then go and cheat, basically.
So they had this idea
Yeah.
before,
And
like, and with a specific person
right.
in mind.
Yes. Have you experienced that?
I'm trying to think, like, probably, but I don't see sometimes people aren't even as bold in therapy, right? Like they're
Yeah.
not always even being honest with us too, right? And especially if we're predominantly more on the couple side of things, like maybe this
Yeah.
is something they would tell their individual therapist,
Sure.
um, rather than in the couples dynamic, like, oh, I already actually was interested in this person prior to opening up the relationship. But yeah, I'm trying to rack my brain thinking have I seen this or when have I seen this? But
I
I
personally
imagine it
have
does
with,
happen.
yeah, I personally did with one client who
Okay.
their partner was the one that wanted this to happen,
Okay.
and they wanted to know what my thoughts were.
Okay.
Um,
What were your thoughts?
my thoughts were, no, that's not a good idea. Uh, because when you're talking about something like a polyamorous relationship or
Right?
an open relationship,
Mm-hmm.
that there's so much communication that needs to
Oh
be,
my gosh,
and there's so
yes.
many rules, there's so many things that need to be laid down before you can even start,
Yeah.
that you're going into it on a basically uh, like a dishonest
Yeah.
idea, because
Yeah.
it's not, oh, hey, I think I might be polyamorous. It's, oh, I'm interested in that person over there. Let me get out of jail free card
Okay, so
and
I'm
go do that.
understanding now.
And so that's what I told the person basically, was that it's not, it's this person is probably wanting a get out of jail free card, and you can do what you want to do. Obviously, I can't make you
Uh-huh.
do, I can't make you do anything.
No, no, no.
But usually, if you're talking about something like a polyamorous relationship or an open relationship, you're talking about a lot of honesty and conversations beforehand.
Absolutely. Well, yeah, tons of honesty, tons of transparency. It's really hard to do. Like I
Yeah.
rarely see it work out well because of the amount of
Hmm.
communication that's required. Doesn't mean it's not
Yeah.
possible.
Yeah.
Of
No.
course it's possible.
Hmm.
Um, but
Yeah, I've
yeah,
seen quite
I
a
agree
few
with you. That was a
successful ones, but
dishonest
yeah.
way of coming into it.
Sorry, I didn't mean to talk over.
No, same, same.
No, but no, I have seen a couple of like very well done polyamorous open relationships. But yeah, they had a well-oiled machine that they maintained very, very well and didn't deviate. So that's probably why it worked.
That's right. Yeah. That's a tricky one for sure. I'm just thinking about that still, about yeah, like almost using polyamory as a like in a very like dishonest way. Like it's
Mhm.
not about the whole principles behind it. It's about
Yeah.
I just want to be with this one person, which I think
Right.
is awful. It's very misleading.
Well, yeah, it's very, I don't know, like you're just wanting, I would assume it's very like lust filled, I guess, right? Like
Mhm.
you're not really, I can't imagine. like, why would you want to blow up your entire relationship just for that? But
Or maybe the relationship's not that important
yeah,
to you
yeah,
to
that's
begin
fair.
with.
That's fair.
Who knows?
Who knows?
People do things for so many different reasons.
That's true. Very true.
Yes.
Okay. So my question is what do you generally do when you have a couple that like one partner seems more the betrayer, let's say, like
Yeah.
you said, is less on board or thinks they're further along, right? They think, oh no, we've already gone past in the Gottman method, the atonement, right? We're
Right.
already past that. We're into
Right.
attunement. And then you have the other partner that's like, whoa, no, not really. Like,
Right.
how do you usually address that?
I mean, that's a great question. And again, kind of like the boundaries, we have to do this together, right? And so if someone's not ready yet to move on, well,
Mhm.
then we stay with the person who's not ready, right? And we address, well, why aren't you ready? What is keeping you stuck here,
Mhm.
right? And sometimes it's still the process. They're
Yeah.
processing what's happened. They're wrapping their head around it. With a betrayal or affair, they're calling into question everything they thought they knew about the other person,
Yeah.
right? So like, oh, I thought things were this way, but to find out things are a completely different way,
Mhm.
they are shocked to their system, right? And so it's a lot
Yeah.
of questioning. And a lot of times people need to hear the same thing over and over and over again. And so I
Right.
encourage my couples to ask as many questions as you want. And so that's the betrayer typically asking, sorry, the betrayed partner asking so many questions, and then it's up to
Yeah.
the betrayer to answer as honestly as possible,
Mm.
and as many times as required. Now, of course, we're human and maybe we need breaks, things like that, and that's welcomed as well. But we
Yeah.
have to come back to it, right? If
Sure.
you guys really want to work on the marriage, if that is the intention here, is to move forward. Um, so yes, I would say we have to work with the person who's not ready yet. We can
Yeah.
like it's not going to be fruitful. We can't rush a person. We can't
Right.
move them along before they're ready. I think it would just be a waste of time.
Yeah. No, I agree.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. But ask as many questions as you want. The Gottmans
Yeah.
would say any question is appropriate except for sexual explicit questions. So
Mhm.
like don't ask about any kind of like positions or things
Right.
like that because that's just going to cause further trauma and
Yeah.
very vivid imagery
Sure.
that is super unhelpful.
Mm.
But questions like how often did you meet and where did you meet and like
Yeah.
um, where did you tell me you were going and did you love this person? Like those types of questions are welcomed, of course.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
So there's so much to it. I feel like you and I could talk like
I
forever about
know.
this topic,
It's true.
but it's more common than I think people realize,
Yeah.
betrayals and affairs. And
Definitely.
you know what? I kind of want people to just know that not all hope is lost. If a
Mm.
betrayal or affair happens in your relationship or marriage, it doesn't necessarily mean that it's over.
Right.
If both parties want to really work at it. And that is the determiner for if it's going to work out or not, is the commitment to
Yeah.
each other and the commitment to the process and trying. If the people are going to put the work in, then I think they have a really good chance of
Mm-hmm.
succeeding and like yielding some really great results. Someone's half in, half out, they're not really going to do the work. Well, it's kind of like anything in life, not really going to get much out of it, right?
Right. No, I think that was really well said. I think we should
Oh, well,
leave it
thank
on that
you.
note.
Thank you.
And um, yeah, we can always maybe do a part two if we want, or we'll find some
Ooh,
other things.
yeah, maybe we will.
Okay, well, thank you for tuning in, and we will be back next month.
Until next time.